Hello everyone and welcome back guys to a bit of a different video today. Now obviously this weekend, as I'm sure you guys are aware, we are heading to the Austrian Grand Prix, in a track with quite a lot of history in Formula 1. But I think there's going to be one thing, that is certainly touched upon over this Grand Prix weekend, and that is obviously, sadly, the death last month of probably one of the most iconic drivers in Formula 1, and by far and away I'd say the most iconic Austrian driver ever in Formula 1, as well as the most successful. Obviously, Niki Lauda sadly passed away at age 70 last month, as I'm sure all of you are aware. And obviously, not only did he have a very, very successful F1 career within the car, he also obviously helped lead Mercedes to the absolute domination that we've seen in recent years as well. So I decided today I would do a bit of a tribute race for him in this week's Grand Prix challenge. We will be doing a 25% race here at the Austrian Grand Prix, driving the truly iconic Ferrari 312 T2. Obviously a car that, although sadly he didn't win the world title in, it was probably the most iconic, year of his career, obviously with, the commercialization of Formula 1 at that time, and obviously the Rush movie as well that released after, on the base upon the 1976 Formula 1 World Championship between himself and James Hunt, and obviously his horrendous crash at the Nürburgring, which was a miracle that he did come out of that alive. And considering he was led his last rites, the fact he lived for another 40 years, I think is very, very impressive. It just goes to show how much of a fighter he really was in the world of Formula 1, both on and off of the track as well. So yeah, today I wanted to do a bit of a tribute race for Niki, with it being his home Grand Prix, everything like that, it only seemed right. And especially, I really wanted to drive this car as well on F1 2019. Truly an iconic car. It's been one of the classics released last year's game as well, and I think a lot of people can agree, cars like this, although I sort of think a lot of the modern F1 cars as well, they are just an absolute piece of art as well. So here we are then on the grid, ready for the race. 18 laps here at the Austrian Grand Prix circuit, and it's lights out and away we go. Though we've got a full 20 car grid of Ferrari 312 T2s here ready today. Over the course of this video, not only will we be having the racing, I'll also probably do a bit of a discussion about Niki as well as this car as well. So obviously in the background, the race isn't sort of the whole focus of today's video as well. A little bit of a different style video to what we normally get on the channel. But don't you guys worry, career mode will be back later on today, hopefully, as well as we head towards the top of the hill on lap 1, get round the outside of a couple of cars there. Really, really happy with that cheeky little logo double overtake there, and yeah, hopefully we can have a nice, fun race here today. It was looking like a dry to wet race even as well, so perhaps we can get a little bit of experience of just how difficult this car really was to drive. Trying it as well in cockpit cam, just something a little bit different. Let me know if you guys like this as well. The cockpit on these older cars, very, very different, as you'd probably expect with 43 years of evolution from what we see on F1 29. You can see not really got as many buttons on the steering wheel. Only the one, which I'm pretty certain is an off switch, but I'm gonna guess that's basically effectively a kill switch for the classic cars, in this game, and everything like that. See, we have got a couple of, meters in the background there. Also, we've got the rev count, and just revs to about 13,000 RPM, actually quite similar in terms of revving to the Formula 1 cars now of modern times. They rev to about 13.5k usually, and drop back down to just under 11 when you change gear here. But yeah, this Ferrari 312 T2 then, a 3-litre, what was it, a 3-litre flat 12. Absolutely monstrous, the fact Ferrari are obviously trying to use these flat 12s for so long and everything like that. I think obviously it was Enzo Ferrari who famously said about how engines are everything that matters in Formula 1. It's aerodynamics are for teams that can't build good engines and everything like that, which always seems a little bit weird to me. That seems like such an American sort of view with muscle cars and things like that. But yeah, very, very focused on raw power was our Enzo Ferrari there, and it led into a lot of success in the early years of Formula 1 as well. Obviously went through a bit of a drought after these next couple of years in F1, but yeah, they did obviously get back to flying colours later on. The early 2000s will always be iconic for Ferrari as well. But yeah, a 3-litre flat 12 5-speed gearbox in this car, and I'll be honest, as you'll see in some parts of this video, we're getting wheel spin in all 5 of those gears. It's crazy. The Formula 1 games aren't even sort of sim, they are very simcade as well. I can sort of understand that. I have driven this car on things like a Seto course before and everything like that, and don't get me wrong, it's a very, very fun experience on the F1 games as well, but you don't quite get that, you know, just ridiculous harshness that is attached to these cars as well. You know, you had to be honestly just mad to try and drive one of these things in real life. Not only were they very, very difficult to try and get right, not very safe, as I'm sure you guys are aware as well. You know, the 70s, the safety had been starting to come in a little bit, but still nothing like, you know, what we should be expecting in Formula 1. You know, a lot of drivers still obviously were dying now and then in Formula 1 back in the 70s. Obviously, Niki, a very, very big advocate for F1 safety as well back in the 70s. You know, a really, really big fighter for it as well there. As you can see, we're trying to look up the inside of Latourneau there. And you think in real life, if, you know, the wheels, you know, we scrub wheels with him, you know, went over, that could easily just be dead, and that was it for another Formula 1 driver's career. And, you know, something like that in F1 nowadays, you're shocked if someone doesn't walk away from a crash. It really does go to show how much the sport has changed, and that's why I really do sort of love driving these classic cars as well, because, you know, people can complain that F1 is boring nowadays and everything like that, and, you know, bring back these sort of classic things, but for me personally, I'd much rather see, you know, a little bit of a boring race than worry if someone's died every time there's a big crash as well. Just personal preference at the end of the day there as well, as we come towards the top of the hill, having a bit of a, you know, very good battle actually with Latourneau at this stage of the day. We had quite a few decent little battles. You know, the spec cars worked really, really well on F1 2019, and this car, I must say, very, very good to try and have a good sort of, you know, race with the AI as well. There, as we can see, dive into the outside of Latourneau there as we come in towards the next couple of corners, and he's just going to slam the door shut on the exit there, try to get the power down on the exit of the corner here, and you can just see trying to look up the inside, but no, we think better of it this time around as well. You know, the cockpit cam really does add to the immersion. You know, I still use T-Cam for career mode, but potentially, you know, I'm planning on doing the F2 series. Maybe just maybe we'll go with cockpit cam for that one. We'll have to wait and see. As you can see, Latourneau there getting a huge moment as we come in towards the final couple of corners of the lap there. Lucky that we were able to keep the car pointing in the right direction. You really can, although the rear tyres are just stupendous on this thing. You know, it is still, they don't carry the most grip in the world as well. But yet, obviously, this car did bring Niki Lauda to second place in the Drivers' World Championship in the end after a dominant opening half of the season, obviously after the horrific crash at the Nürburgring. It was a miracle, like I said, that he even survived. It was even more of a miracle that he returned to Monza just 6 weeks later to continue on for trying to fight for the title. And obviously, sadly, at Fuji in the final race of the season, well, I say sadly, sensibly, in all honesty, you know, Niki Lauda decided in the rain that he wasn't willing to put his life on the line once again. They pulled the car in, and James Hunt, as we all are well aware, at this point managed to come through to clinch the world title. But I think just 1 point at the end of the championship as well. That's obviously, yeah, very, very dramatic season on the whole, and obviously at the end of the day, happy that both of them could, you know, come out of it alive. Although it is weird now to think, you know, both James Hunt and Niki Lauda are now, you know, one lap ahead of us, I think is the right way to be describing it as well. There's, you see, skipping on now though to a lap 9, the halfway stage of the race, starting to set a couple of fastest laps, getting into a bit of a rhythm now with this car. I'm going to try to look round potentially for a move on Nieves there. You see, just closes the door a little bit late. Didn't quite really want to risk it as we came towards the top of the hill there, and all of the cars still sparking away as well. What a sight to behold on F1 2019 here. It's just the top of the hill. The wheel spin was absolutely crazy. I know obviously these cars raced, I think, did they race in Austria? I think they did as well, obviously, but, you know, on the older Österreich ring as well, a little bit of a longer circuit. You know, the old track is still somewhat intact. I remember when I went to the Austrian Grand Prix a couple of years back, you know, you could still, you know, you had to walk up the old circuit as well, just around the other side of the trees. You can see just in front of us. You effectively had a very similar layout, but just a little bit further along behind that row of trees behind the grandstands on the right-hand side. I would highly recommend, you know, even not for the Grand Prix weekend, just having a go and having a bit of a look around the classic track as well. The way of safety, very, very different. You know, you had one very small Armco barrier on the outside as well, and really does go to show, you know, it is just, you know, for someone that wasn't alive in that era as well, like myself, you know, it is crazy to think, you know, what these guys really sort of did back in the day. But having a look then, you know, we've had a bit of a look at the car. Niki Lauda himself, though, obviously born on the 22nd of February 1949, obviously died last month, May 20th, 2019, at the age of 70. Not bad, you know, lived more than half his life with his last rites is, you know, just crazy when you think about it as well. There are 174 F1 races, only 173 starts, 3 World Championships, 25 victories, 24 poles, 54 podiums, and 420.5 points. That obviously half a point very, very critical in beating Alain Prost in the 1984 World Championship as well. You can see the 24 fastest laps and 8,217 laps completed in Formula 1. Just crazy stats when you think about it as well. Obviously, his first ever Formula 1 Grand Prix, the 1971 Austrian Grand Prix, and his last race was in 1985 at the Australian Grand Prix as well. He'd take his first pole at the South African Grand Prix and his last pole as well, actually, at the South African Grand Prix 4 years later even, I should say, as well. There's first win, 1974 Spanish Grand Prix there, and his last win, obviously, the 1985 Dutch Grand Prix, which would also be his last ever Formula 1 podium as well, before he decided to retire at the end of the season there. And a career spanning 15 seasons is, well, sorry, not 15 seasons, obviously, considering a few years out. Yeah, still a career spanning, I think, a good 10, 11 years is just absolutely crazy, especially, you know, in that time. You know, a 10, 11 year career nowadays in Formula 1 is still not exactly common, but certainly not rare either. You know, you think of current Formula 1 drivers that have been in the sport that long, Hamilton, Raikkonen, Seb, and I feel like I'm missing, you know, Sergio Perez, Hulkenberg, getting up towards that as well nowadays. But, you know, it's quite difficult as well in Formula 1 to sort of maintain such a long career as well. You know, Robert Kubica as well, a bit of a weird one, obviously, coming back to the sport as well. Yeah, Niki Lauda, 3-time Formula 1 World Champion, obviously joins a very, very exclusive club in that sense as well there. And obviously raced for some very, very iconic teams. The only driver ever in the sport, if I'm not mistaken, to win a World Championship with both Ferrari and McLaren at the end of the day. But he also did a race for Brabham as well as BRM, and March were the first team to get him a place in Formula 1. If I'm not mistaken, he was actually technically a paid driver back in the early stages of his F1 career that bought his way into Formula 1 and then bought his way into Ferrari as well, which I'm aware his family were not quite a fan of, but I think at the end of the day he certainly proved his worth in Formula 1 as well, and proved that he could be the best driver in the world, and very much one of the first drivers to really sort of bring a much more technical element to the sport as well. You know, very, not quite, you know, sort of Senna levels of fine details, but still truly, you know, someone that really did put everything into Formula 1 as well. You know, wanted to be his best driver he possibly could, and, you know, very much shaped the future of Formula 1 in the same sort of way Michael Schumacher did, in terms of just the level of fitness and everything like that. Really does go to show, you know, how much of a physical sport F1, especially back then, how physical an F1 car was to drive. You know, like I said, you know, this car on F1 2019, brilliant fun to drive. You do definitely sort of get an element of how difficult it was to drive, and still, you know, you'll see later on in this race getting quite a few, well, just everywhere you're fighting with oversteer on the exits of all the corners. Obviously the sequential gearbox as, oh sorry, no, I think it might have been a H-pack gearbox as well. They see the safety car actually get deployed at this stage of the day as well, so hopefully we'll have a little bit of an interesting end towards this Grand Prix as well there. But yeah, sequential gearbox in this car as well. Obviously nothing with the flappy paddles and things like that. You know, very, very physical experience. Obviously we've seen the laps by Ayrton Senna at Monaco, you know, on opposite lock, one hand on the steering wheel trying to get the gears back down in the box as well. And yeah, the 5-speed box on this Ferrari, like I said, you do get wheel spin in every single gear as well. As we head in towards the final few laps though of this race, you can see we're now up into P2 actually. I've been talking a lot about other stuff on this video as well. Hopefully you guys have sort of enjoyed this different style as well, but we would have a few more laps to go of this Grand Prix. The safety car will be coming in the end of this lap there, as we almost ready to the back of Casada there, in towards the final couple of corners of the lap. 4 laps to go of this Grand Prix. Could we come through potentially just about to scrape a race victory at the end of the day there? We'll have to wait and see as everyone starts to get ready for the restart. That car just sounds so cool as well. You know, I think there was footage as we get a huge chunk of wheel spin, actually footage, although a little bit later, obviously the 1995 Ferrari with the flat 12 at Imola, just how loud, you know, that flat 12 was and how distinct it was to basically every other car on the Formula 1 grid, because I mean by that point obviously most teams had adopted, you know, V8s and a few V10s I think as well in the sport. And yeah, obviously Ferrari always the team that wanted to try and get everything out of a flat 12 engine as well. They certainly did, you know, got very close to mastering it throughout its career in Formula 1, just very, very heavy on the fuel, and obviously we don't quite see that in F1 nowadays as well. But yeah, Casada does get a good run off the restart there as we come towards the top of the hill here, just trying to settle back down into a rhythm here. You can see as we reach the top of the hill, the highest point on this track there, and you can see now we're just going to get a little flash actually there, you can just see, and that now means we have got rain here to finish towards the end of this Austrian Grand Prix. How are we going to fare in this one? This is going to be a really tough test to see how we face on F1 2019, because I'll be honest with you, this was the very first time on F1 2019 I had driven in the rain. You know, I hadn't actually done any wet weather driving yet on this game, just mainly because we hadn't had any in career mode just yet here. So it's going to be interesting to see how we fare, and what a test it was going to be driving this iconic Ferrari car. You can see getting the opposite lock already here, like we've been doing throughout a lot of this race. Those huge rear tyres, like I've said, big, not very useful though at the end of the day, sadly, just not really providing as much grip as you'd probably expect from something this, you know, just ridiculous on the back of this car, you know, strapped down and everything like that there. You can see lap 16 now, the rain is really starting to pour as Quesada goes defensive in towards turn 1. We think about going for a move up the inside, but think better of it there. I really didn't want to ruin our race right towards the very end here, as someone else behind has got a few issues with their car as well. But yeah, towards the top of the hill then, all over the back of Quesada once again there. We move to the outside, we think about going up the inside as well, but still trying to focus on getting the car slowed down in towards the corners there. Just look at the top of the hill, they're fighting third, fourth gear, they're just everywhere, the back end all over the place here, and just, well, I keep saying it, but you had to be mad to try and drive one of these cars in Formula 1. It was just, as I'm sure we're all aware, just an absolute death trap as well. But I would highly recommend giving this car a go on F1 2019. I really want to sort of start driving all the classic cars once again here as we head in towards the final couple of corners of lap 16. You know, they are a very different experience, and something that I think goes heavily underrated on the F1 games as well here, as we're now almost pushing Quesada through the final couple of corners of lap 16. Just 2 and a bit laps to go there. A huge chunk of wheel spin once again off the exit of the corner here. We don't really want to be using the curbs very much now at this late stage of the day there, and still just the back end everywhere trying to scramble for grip there as we just try and keep the front end pointing in the right direction here. And the rain is just getting worse and worse here through the final couple of corners, and once again just fighting everything in the rear end there, and still getting wheel spin halfway up the start-finish straight there. You don't really see that in Formula 1 nowadays. As we come in towards turn 1, they're still sparking away just in front. We lock the front wheels though completely. A huge lock up in towards turn 1 here. At this stage we might have been thinking about going onto a set of the wet weather tyres there as we try to get up the hill, avoiding the wheel spin as best as possible here. And we might have a bit of a move there. You can see, what's that, about 130 miles an hour. We're still getting wheel spin as we reach the top of the hill. Sadly, you know, in the cockpit can't get in no speedo at this stage of the day there. But I think that just adds to the immersion in the sense that I don't think we actually had one in this car either there as we head towards the top of the hill. Just everywhere. The back end just not everywhere but where we wanted it to go. We pretty much halfway down all of the straights here. We'd finally get it snapped back into line. But as we head in towards the next corner there, getting once again a huge lockup as we try to get the power down on the exit. And unfortunately, yeah, the Ferrari has a bit back there. We go for a nice little pirouette for style points there. And unfortunately, yeah, that's been a big mistake from myself. A little bit gutted towards the end of this Grand Prix. But I think it does justice of how difficult these cars really were, and you know how much raw talent Niki Lauda must have had back in the day there. Sadly, yeah, the tyres had just completely gone at this stage. Done a nice another pirouette there as well, almost actually collecting a lot of other cars at this stage of the day. That we get a warning for a collision as well there, and I must admit a little bit gutted that unfortunately, you know, we were fighting for the win, but sadly right at the end it all sort of went undone. But still, just a testament, like I said, to just how much talent, you know, people like Niki Lauda and James Hunt must have had to try and wrestle these cars around, especially in the rain. It really does give you a good idea as to why Niki Lauda did not want to continue that 1976 Japanese Grand Prix year, because, well, it's just absolute madness trying to keep this car pointing in the right direction there. But yeah, this race, certainly one that I thoroughly enjoyed there, as we still get a huge tank slapper in towards the final couple of corners of the final lap. As I said, you know, this was meant to be a tribute for Niki Lauda, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this video as well. You know, driving his iconic car at his home Grand Prix down towards the line. Sadly, not quite the ending that we would have wanted there, but what a car, what a driver, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video nonetheless, despite a little bit of a disappointing finish at the end of the day. But yeah, like I said, that'll do us for this one. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you next time for another video.